A waitress noticed what everyone else missed. The mafia boss's daughter couldn't breathe. She acted without thinking, saving a life with nothing but instinct and a borrowed pen. What she didn't know, the most dangerous man in the city doesn't forget a debt. And he'd just decided she was under his protection forever. Emma Vale's feet were killing her. 12 hours into a double shift at La Verita, and the elegant Italian restaurant showed no signs of slowing down. Saturday nights were always chaos. Wealthy patrons in designer suits, politicians laughing too loud over wine, and tonight, the Romano family occupying the entire private dining room in the back. Emma didn't ask questions about the Romanos. Nobody did. She'd heard the whispers, of course. How Vincenzo Romano owned half the waterfront. How his import business was cleaner on paper than in practice. How people who crossed him had a habit of relocating permanently or disappearing altogether. But Emma needed the tips. Her nursing school loans weren't going to pay themselves, especially after she dropped out 2 years ago when her father died and left behind a mountain of medical debt. So when her manager, Tony, asked her to work the Romano table, she nodded and grabbed her notepad. "Just smile and don't stare," Tony muttered. "They tip well if you're invisible." Emma pushed through the heavy oak doors into the private room. The scene was almost theatrical. Vincenzo Romano sat at the head of the table, 50-something, salt and pepper hair slicked back, a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Emma's car. His presence filled a room like expensive cologne. Around him sat 7 men, all variations of the same archetype: broad shoulders, cold eyes, gold watches. And then there was the girl. She sat 2 seats down from Vincenzo, picking at her pasta with a fork. 17, maybe 18. Dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, a black cocktail dress that screamed, daughter of someone important, but it was her face that caught Emma's attention. She looked uncomfortable. Not bored teenager uncomfortable. Something else. "Excuse me," Emma said softly, approaching with a water pitcher. "Can I refill anyone's glass?" The men barely glanced at her. Vincenzo gave a slight nod. Emma moved around the table, pouring water with practiced precision, her server smile locked in place. When she reached the girl, their eyes met for just a second. The girl's pupils were dilated. A thin sheen of sweat glistened on her forehead despite the air conditioning. Her breathing seemed shallow, quick. Emma's nursing instincts kicked in immediately, that old muscle memory from her 18 months of clinical rotations before everything fell apart. "Are you all right?" Emma asked quietly, leaning in as she filled the glass. "I'm fine," the girl said, but her voice was tight, strained. Emma straightened, ready to move on, when the girl suddenly grabbed the edge of the table. Her knuckles went white. "Gianna?" Vincenzo's voice cut through the conversation. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, Dad. Gianna's words slurred slightly. "I feel weird." "She's probably anxious," one of the men said with a dismissive wave. Big crowd late night, but Emma was still watching. And she saw what everyone else missed. Gianna's lips were swelling. Subtly at first, but unmistakable if you knew what to look for. Her neck was flushing red in blotchy patches. She brought a hand to her throat, fingers trembling. "She needs help," Emma said sharply. The room went silent. 7 pairs of eyes turned to her, some annoyed, some curious, all dangerous. "Excuse me?" Vincenzo's tone was ice. Emma ignored him. She dropped to her knees beside Gianna's chair. "Can you breathe okay? Tell me what you're feeling." "Throat tight," Gianna gasped. Her voice was barely a whisper now. "Can't breathe." "Someone call 911. Emma shouted. "What the hell is going on?" Vincenzo was on his feet now, panic cracking through his controlled facade. "Anaphylaxis," Emma said, her hands already moving. "She's having an allergic reaction. Does she have an EpiPen?" "A what?" Vincenzo looked lost, helpless, a man used to solving problems with money and force suddenly powerless. Does she have allergies? Shellfish. She's allergic to shellfish, but she didn't eat any. Cross-contamination. Emma snapped. The kitchen must have used the same surfaces. She's going into shock. Gianna's eyes were rolling back. Her lips had turned from pink to blue. Emma's mind raced.
No EpiPen.
Ambulance at least 8 minutes away in downtown traffic. Gianna didn't have 8 minutes. She scanned the table. Wine glasses, silverware, cloth napkins. Nothing useful. Then her eyes landed on the decorative fountain pen in Vincenzo's jacket pocket. Give me that pen.
Now.
Vincenzo hesitated for half a second, then thrust it at her. Emma's hands moved on pure instinct, the ghost of her medical training taking over. She unscrewed the pen, dumped out the ink cartridge, and was left with a hollow tube. Not sterile. Not ideal. But it would work. Hold her head back, she ordered one of the men. To her surprise, he obeyed. Gianna had stopped struggling. Her face was gray. Emma could barely feel a pulse at her wrist. Stay with me, Gianna, Emma whispered. Then, louder. Someone get me a knife. A clean 1 inch. The room erupted in chaos. Men shouting, chairs scraping, Vincenzo yelling into his phone. But Emma's world had narrowed to a single point, the unconscious girl in front of her. A steak knife appeared in her peripheral vision. She grabbed it. What the hell are you doing? One of the men roared. Emma didn't answer. She felt for the cricothyroid membrane in Gianna's throat, the small gap between the thyroid cartilage and the cricoid cartilage. Her anatomy professor's voice echoed in her head, 2 finger widths above the sternal notch. Be precise. Be quick. She made a small horizontal incision. Blood welled up, and someone behind her cursed. Emma ignored it. She inserted the hollow pen tube into the opening, creating an emergency airway. For 3 terrible seconds, nothing happened. Then Gianna's chest heaved. Air rushed into her lungs through the makeshift tube. Her color began to shift from gray to pale pink. Emma sat back on her heels, her hands shaking violently now that the adrenaline was fading. The room was dead silent, except for the ragged sound of Gianna breathing through a pen. Vincenzo Romano stared at Emma like she'd just performed a miracle, or a magic trick he couldn't understand. Who the hell are you? He whispered. Before Emma could answer, the doors burst open. Paramedics flooded in, drawn by someone's frantic 911 call. They took over immediately, replacing Emma's crude airway with proper medical equipment, loading Gianna onto a stretcher. Emma stood on shaky legs, backing away into the corner as the professionals worked. Her white shirt was splattered with blood. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling. One of the paramedics paused on his way out. That was a cricothyrotomy, he said, looking at Emma with something like awe. Where'd you learn that? Nursing school, Emma said quietly. A long time ago. He nodded slowly. You saved her life. Another 2 minutes and her brain would have been oxygen deprived. She wouldn't have made it. Then he was gone, and Emma was alone with 6 mobsters and 1 shell-shocked mafia boss. Vincenzo approached her slowly, his expensive shoes crunching on the broken glass from the water pitcher someone had knocked over. You saved my daughter, he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, heavy with meaning Emma didn't fully understand yet. I just did what anyone would do, she managed. No, Vincenzo's dark eyes bored into hers. No one else saw what you saw. No one else acted. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, heavy cardstock, embossed gold lettering. He pressed it into her blood-stained palm. If you ever need anything, he said quietly, you call that number. Then he was gone, striding out after his daughter, his men falling into formation around him like a small army. Emma stood alone in the ruined private dining room, Gianna's blood still wet on her hands, and a mafia boss's business card crinkling in her grip. She had the strange, certain feeling that her life had just changed forever. She just didn't know how much. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat on her threadbare couch in her studio apartment, staring at the business card on her coffee table like it might explode. Simple black text on cream cardstock. V. Romano and a phone number. Nothing else. No company name, no address. It didn't need one. Her phone buzzed for the 100th time. Text messages flooded in from coworkers who'd heard about the chaos at La Verita. OMG, are you okay? I heard you saved someone's life. Tony says you're a hero. Emma didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who'd accidentally walked onto a stage during a performance and couldn't find the exit. By morning, she'd convinced herself it would blow over. The Romanos would disappear back into their world of shadows and secrets, and she'd go back to serving pasta and counting tips. She was wrong. When Emma arrived at La Verita for her Sunday brunch shift, the entire staff was huddled in the kitchen. The conversation died the instant she walked in. There she is, Marco, one of the line cooks, said with something between admiration and fear. The girl who saved the Don's daughter. Don't call him that, Emma muttered, tying her apron. Why not? Everyone knows what he is. Marco leaned against the prep counter. Word on the street is Gianna Romano coded twice in the ambulance. Doctors said if you hadn't done that crazy emergency airway thing, she'd be dead. Emma's stomach twisted. She'd known it was serious, but hearing it stated so bluntly made her hands shake all over again. Is she okay now? Emma asked quietly. Stable. She's at St. Michael's in the ICU. Marco lowered his voice. Emma, do you understand what you did? You saved Vincenzo Romano's only child. His daughter. People are talking. What people? Everyone. The entire neighborhood knows by now. The waitress who brought the Don's daughter back from death. He shook his head. You're either the luckiest person alive or the most unlucky. Haven't decided which yet. Tony emerged from his office, his face grave. Emma, can I see you? Her heart sank. She followed him into the cramped back office that smelled like old receipts and espresso. I'm not firing you, Tony said immediately, reading her expression. But I need you to understand something. The Romanos. They don't forget. Good or bad, you're on their radar now. I just helped someone who needed help. I know. And that's exactly what makes this complicated. Tony ran a hand through his thinning hair. My cousin works at St. Michael's. He says Romano hasn't left his daughter's bedside. The man who runs half the city is sitting in a hospital waiting room like any other scared father. Emma thought of Vincenzo's face last night, the terror barely concealed beneath his controlled exterior. Take a few days off, Tony continued.
Paid. Just.
Let things settle. I need to work. I have rent. Emma, Tony's voice softened. People are watching this restaurant now. Romano's people, his enemies, maybe even the feds. I'm trying to protect you. And frankly, I'm trying to protect my business too. Emma wanted to argue, but she saw the fear in Tony's eyes. He was a good man running a legitimate restaurant, and she'd accidentally dragged him into something dangerous. Okay, she whispered. A few days. She left through the back entrance, avoiding the curious stares of the morning prep crew. The coffee shop 3 blocks from her apartment was nearly empty on Sunday morning. Emma ordered a black coffee she didn't want and sat in the corner booth, trying to become invisible. It lasted exactly 15 minutes. The bell above the door chimed, and 2 women in expensive athleisure wear walked in. They ordered elaborate lattes, laughing about something on one of their phones. As they waited, one of them glanced around the shop. Her eyes landed on Emma. The woman elbowed her friend and whispered something. They both stared. Emma's face burned. She stood abruptly, abandoning her coffee, and pushed out onto the street. But the damage was done. One of the women had snapped a photo. By noon, Emma's phone was ringing with unknown numbers. She stopped answering after the 3rd call from someone claiming to be a reporter wanting to tell her story. A local news blog had already posted an article. Mystery waitress performs emergency surgery, saves teen at exclusive restaurant. They'd pulled her name from somewhere, probably called La Verita, pretending to be a customer asking about the hero waitress. Her inbox filled with Facebook friend requests from people she'd never met. Someone had found her old nursing school photo and posted it with the caption, This is the angel who saved Gianna Romano's life. Emma deleted the apps. Then she turned off her phone entirely. She spent the rest of Sunday hiding in her apartment, curtains drawn, jumping at every sound in the hallway. Monday morning brought a knock at her door. Emma froze on her couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes. She hadn't showered, hadn't eaten. The knock came again, more insistent.
Emma Valley.
A woman's voice. I'm Detective Sarah Chun with the Organized Crime Task Force. I need to ask you some questions. Emma's blood went cold. She approached the door slowly, checked the peephole. A woman in her 40s stood there, badge held up, professional pantsuit, tired eyes. Emma opened the door a crack, keeping the chain on. I already gave a statement to the paramedics, Emma said. This isn't about the medical emergency. Detective Chen's expression was unreadable. This is about your relationship with Vincenzo Romano. I don't have a relationship with him. I'm a waitress. He was a customer. He gave you his private number. Emma's mouth went dry. How did she know that? Ms. Vale, I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to warn you. Chen glanced down the hallway, then back. Romano doesn't do favors without strings. You saved his daughter's life, which means he owes you. In his world, that's dangerous. For both of you. I don't want anything from him. That might not matter. Chen handed her a card through the gap in the door. When he comes calling and he will, you call me. Understand? Before Emma could respond, Chen was walking away, her footsteps echoing in the stairwell. Emma closed the door and leaned against it, her heart hammering. She looked at the detective's card in one hand, Romano's card still sitting on her coffee table. Two different worlds, both pulling at her. She wanted to disappear into neither. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. Emma spent Monday afternoon in the break room of La Verita, even though she wasn't supposed to be there. Tony had told her to take time off, but her apartment felt like a cage. At least here, surrounded by the familiar smell of garlic and tomato sauce, the world made sense. She sat at the scratched wooden table where staff ate their meals, nursing a cup of terrible break room coffee and trying to read a book she'd already forgotten the plot of. The kitchen noise was comforting, Marco shouting orders, pans clanging, the industrial dishwasher humming. Normal. Safe. Then everything went quiet. Emma looked up from her book. The kitchen had fallen completely silent. Marco stood frozen at the stove, a wooden spoon halfway to a pot. The dishwasher had stopped mid-cycle. Even the radio someone always kept playing had been turned off. What's... Emma started. Tony burst through the break room door, his face pale.
Emma.
Front of house.
Now. What? Why?
Just come. And for God's sake, don't say anything stupid. Emma followed him through the kitchen. Every single staff member was staring at her, some with fear, some with something like awe. Marco crossed himself as she passed. When they pushed through the swinging doors into the dining room, Emma understood. Two black SUVs were parked directly in front of the restaurant, blocking traffic. Drivers honked angrily, then stopped when they saw who was getting out of the vehicles. Men in dark suits. 6 of them, fanning out like a security detail. And in the center, adjusting his cufflinks with practiced ease, Vincenzo Romano. He looked different in daylight. Older somehow, the lines around his eyes more pronounced. But no less intimidating. He wore a navy suit that probably cost $5,000 and moved with the quiet confidence of a man who'd never been told no in his life. The handful of lunch customers in the dining room had gone statue still. An elderly couple near the window looked ready to bolt. A businessman in a corner booth slowly lowered his fork. Vincenzo's eyes swept the room until they found Emma. He walked toward her, his men forming a loose perimeter. Every step echoed on the hardwood floor. Emma's mouth went dry. Detective Chen's warning rang in her head. When he comes calling, and he will, you call me. But her phone was in her locker. And even if it wasn't, what was she supposed to do? Dial 911 in front of a mafia boss. Vincenzo stopped 3 feet away. This close, Emma could see the exhaustion in his face, the redness in his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept any better than she had. "You were the one?" he asked softly. His voice was different than she remembered. Gentler. Almost tentative. Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. Behind her, Tony shifted nervously. Around them, the restaurant held its collective breath. "My daughter is alive because of you," Vincenzo said. He spoke quietly, but his words carried in the silence. The doctors said. They said another minute, and there would have been brain damage. 2 minutes, and she would have died. Emma didn't know what to say. "I'm glad she's okay," seemed absurdly inadequate. "I don't know how to thank you," Vincenzo continued. He seemed genuinely at a loss, this man who commanded an empire with a word. "In my world, debts are everything. And I owe you a debt I can never repay." He reached into his jacket. Emma flinched involuntarily and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is for you," he said, holding it out. Emma stared at the envelope. It was bulging, sealed with a small embossed sticker bearing an ornate R. "I can't take that," she said. The restaurant somehow got even quieter. One of Vincenzo's men shifted, surprised. Tony made a small squeaking sound behind her. Vincenzo's eyebrows rose slightly. "Excuse me? I can't take money for helping someone." Emma's voice was steadier than she felt. "That's not why I did it." "Then what do you want?" Vincenzo seemed genuinely confused.
A job?
"A car? Property? Name it." Emma thought of her studio apartment, her student loans, the collection notices that arrived weekly. Part of her, a large part, wanted to grab that envelope and run. But she thought of Detective Chen's warning. She thought of Marco crossing himself. She thought of being dragged into a world she didn't understand. "Fix the streetlight outside," she said suddenly.
Vincenzo blinked.
"What?" "The streetlight on the corner. It's been broken for 8 months. People nearly get hit by cars trying to cross at night. An old man got clipped by a taxi last month." Emma surprised herself with her boldness. "If you want to do something for me, fix that." For a long moment, Vincenzo just stared at her. His men exchanged glances. Tony looked like he might pass out. Then, incredibly, the corner of Vincenzo's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "A streetlight," he said. "Yes." He studied her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "You're refusing money from me. To ask for
Municipal infrastructure repair.
Yes." Vincenzo shook his head slowly, something like wonder in his expression. He tucked the envelope back into his jacket. "Consider done," he said. Then he placed the envelope on the nearest table. "But I'm leaving this here anyway, because in my world debts matter, whether you accept it or not." He turned to leave, his men immediately falling into formation. But at the door, he paused and looked back. "My daughter asked about you," he said. "She wanted to know your name. When I told her," she said, "she looked at me like I was a person, not your daughter." Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or regret. "That shouldn't have surprised her," he said quietly. But it did. Then he was gone, climbing into the SUV. The convoy pulled away, leaving only the echo of expensive engines and the thick envelope sitting on table 7. The restaurant exploded into noise. Customers started talking at once. Tony grabbed Emma's shoulder. "Are you insane?" he hissed. "You turned down money from Vincenzo Romano." Emma walked to table 7 and picked up the envelope. It was heavy. She could feel the cash through the paper. She walked to the kitchen, past gaping staff members, to Tony's office. She placed the envelope in the center of his desk. "When he comes back for it, and he will, tell him I meant what I said." Then she grabbed her jacket from her locker and left through the back door. She walked the 3 blocks home on shaking legs, and it wasn't until she locked her apartment door behind her that she started laughing. Hysterical, borderline manic laughter. She'd just refused a Mafia boss's money and asked him to fix a streetlight instead. Emma Vale, apparently, had lost her mind. Emma woke Tuesday morning to the sound of construction. She stumbled to her window, squinting against the morning sun, and looked down at the street corner below her building. A utility truck was parked at an angle, orange cones surrounding it. Two workers in hard hats were installing a brand new streetlight where the broken one had stood dark for months. A third man supervised, clipboard in hand, barking instructions. Emma's breath caught. It had been less than 24 hours since she'd made that request. The city usually took weeks, months, to fix anything. She'd filed 3 complaints herself through the municipal website, all ignored. But Vincenzo Romano had made a single phone call, and here they were. She watched them work for 10 minutes, a knot forming in her stomach. This was how his world operated. Money talked. Power moved mountains. Or, in this case, fixed streetlights overnight. It should have felt good. She'd asked for something that would help people, and it was happening. Instead, she felt like she'd made a deal with the devil. Emma returned to work Wednesday morning despite Tony's protests. "You sure you're ready?" he asked, worry creasing his forehead. "The lunch rush has been intense. Everyone wants to eat where it happened." He wasn't wrong.
La Verità was packed.
Every table full, a waiting list by the door. Customers kept glancing toward the private dining room like they expected ghosts. Emma tied her apron and grabbed her order pad. "I need to work, Tony. I need normal." Normal lasted exactly 2 hours. She was taking an order from a young couple when Marco appeared at her elbow, his face anxious.
"Emma, kitchen. Now.
"I'm with customers."
Now."
The urgency in his voice made her excuse herself and follow him through the swinging doors. Tony was standing by the prep station, holding the envelope. The same envelope Vincenzo had left 3 days ago. "He sent it back," Tony said. Emma stared. "What?" "A courier just delivered it."
"To you."
With a note. Tony handed her a small card. The same expensive cardstock as Romano's business card, the same embossed R at the top. The handwriting was surprisingly neat, almost elegant. "The street light is done. This is for you. I don't take no for an answer."
F.R.
Emma's jaw tightened. She grabbed the envelope and marched toward Tony's office. "Emma, what are you doing?" Tony called after her. She didn't answer. She was too angry. She stuffed the envelope into her jacket pocket, untied her apron, and headed for the back door. "I'll be back in an hour," she said. "Where are you going?" "To return something." St. Michael's Hospital was a 15-minute bus ride from La Verita. Emma had looked up which room Gianna Romano was in, a private suite on the 4th floor, which hadn't been hard to find. The nurses were gossiping about that mobster's daughter, loud enough for anyone to hear. Emma took the elevator up, her heart hammering. This was stupid. This was incredibly, monumentally stupid. But she was done being pushed around. The 4th floor hallway was quiet, expensive. This wing was clearly for wealthy patients. Artwork on the walls, plush carpet instead of linoleum, actual chairs instead of plastic benches. 2 men in suits stood outside room 412. Emma approached, the envelope clutched in her hand. "I need to see Mr. Romano," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. The larger of the 2 men, shaved head, scar across his eyebrow, looked her up and down. "Who are you?"
"Emma Valli."
"He knows me." The men exchanged glances. Scarface pulled out a phone, stepped away, murmured something. A pause. Then he nodded and pocketed the phone. "He says to send you in." The second man opened the door. Emma stepped into a hospital room that looked more like a luxury hotel suite. Private bathroom, couch, flat-screen TV. The beeping of monitors was the only thing that gave away its true purpose. Gianna Romano lay in the bed, propped up on pillows. She looked pale, fragile, with an 4 in her arm and fading bruises on her throat where Emma had performed the emergency cricothyrotomy. But she was alive. Alert. Her dark eyes tracked Emma as she entered. Vincenzo sat in a chair beside the bed, still wearing a suit despite clearly having been there for days. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. Miss Vale, he said, standing. I didn't expect. I came to return this. Emma held out the envelope. Vincenzo didn't take it. I already told you. I don't take no for an answer. And I already told you. I don't want your money. Emma, his voice hardened slightly. I've had people killed for less disrespect than you're showing me right now. Emma's blood ran cold, but she forced herself to stand straight. Then I guess you'll have to kill me, she said quietly. Because I'm not taking it. The room went silent. Even the monitors seemed to beat more softly. Then, from the bed, Gianna laughed. It was weak, raspy from her damaged throat, but genuine. I like her, Dad, Gianna said, her voice hoarse. She's got guts. Vincenzo looked between his daughter and Emma, something conflicted in his expression. You don't understand, he said to Emma. In my world, refusing a gift is an insult. It means you think I can't provide, that I'm weak. I don't think you're weak, Emma said. I think you're trying to turn helping your daughter into a transaction. And it's not. I didn't save her life, so you'd owe me. I save her life because she's a person who deserved to be saved. Vincenzo stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He sat down heavily, like someone had cut his strings. My wife used to say things like that, he said quietly. Before the cancer took her. She'd tell me, Vincenzo, not everything is a deal. Sometimes people just help because it's right. He looked up at Emma. I forgot that. Somewhere along the way. Emma's anger deflated slightly. She saw him clearly then, not as a feared mafia boss, but as a tired father who'd almost lost his daughter. Keep your money, she said gently. Be there for Gianna. That's all the payment anyone needs. She set the envelope on the side table and turned to leave. Wait, Gianna called out. What's your name? Your real name, not just the waitress.
Emma. Emma Vale.
Thank you, Emma, Gianna said, tears in her eyes. For seeing me, Emma nodded, not trusting her voice, and left. As the hospital room door closed behind her, she heard Vincenzo say softly to his daughter, She's right, you know. I should have been seeing you all along. Emma rode the bus back to La Verita with empty hands and a strange lightness in her chest. She'd stood up to Vincenzo Romano twice now. Somehow, impossibly, she was still alive. The new streetlight glowed like a beacon every night. Emma noticed it first on Thursday evening as she walked home from her shift. The corner that had been dark for months now blazed with clean, bright LED light. Pedestrians crossed safely. Cars stopped at the crosswalk. The difference was remarkable. But it wasn't just the streetlight. Friday morning, Emma noticed the sidewalk had been repaired. The cracked concrete that had been a tripping hazard for years, smoothed over, new cement still slightly damp. Saturday, the graffiti-covered bus stop had been repainted. Fresh green paint, new bench, even a small shelter installed overhead. Sunday, she found security cameras mounted on 3 corners of her block. Professional installations, subtle but visible enough to deter trouble. Emma stood beneath one of the cameras, staring up at it. This wasn't city work. This was Vincenzo. She'd refused his money, so he'd found another way to repay his debt. By making her neighborhood safer. By fixing things the city had ignored for years. It should have made her angry. Instead, she felt something more complicated. Gratitude mixed with unease. Monday night, Emma's shift ended at 11. She pushed through La Verita's back door into the alley, exhausted, her feet aching in her worn sneakers. The alley was dimly lit, dumpsters creating dark pockets of shadow. Normally, she walked quickly to the main street, keys clutched between her fingers just in case. Tonight, she noticed a car parked at the alley's mouth. Black sedan, engine idling, windows tinted. Emma's heart rate kicked up. She changed direction, heading toward the opposite end of the alley, where it connected to a side street. Another car there.
Same make.
Same model. She stopped in the middle of the alley, trapped between them. The first car's window rolled down. A man leaned out, late 30s, dark hair, bored expression. One of Romano's men from the hospital. Relax, he called. Boss wants you safe. We're just making sure you get home okay. Emma's jaw dropped. You're following me? Protecting you, the man corrected. There's a difference. I don't need protection. With respect, Miss Vale, you don't get to make that call, he shrugged. Boss says you're under our watch. So you're under our watch. This is insane, Emma muttered. But what could she do? Call the police and report that the Mafia was keeping her safe. She walked past the first car toward the main street. The sedan followed her at a crawl, staying a half-block behind. It followed her all the way home. When she reached her building, the car parked across the street. The engine cut off. The man inside settled in, pulling out a thermos like he planned to stay a while. Emma climbed the stairs to her apartment, equal parts furious and baffled. Tuesday, she confronted Tony. Did you know about this? She demanded, cornering him in the office before the lunch shift. Know about what? Romano has men following me, watching my apartment. Tony, this is crazy. Tony sighed heavily. Emma, what did you expect? You saved his daughter's life. In his world, that makes you family. Or, at least under his protection. I don't want his protection. Doesn't matter what you want. Tony's voice was gentle but firm. You think he's doing this for you? He's doing this for himself. If something happened to you now, after what you did for Gianna, it would be a stain on his reputation. He can't let you get hurt. Emma slumped against the desk. So, I'm stuck with Mafia bodyguards. Could be worse. At least they're competent. Wednesday afternoon, Emma decided to test the limits. She left La Verita after the lunch rush and took a deliberately complicated route home, backtracking, cutting through a park, stopping randomly to window shop. The black sedan stayed with her the entire time. Finally, frustrated, she marched up to the driver's window and knocked. The same bored-looking man rolled it down. Can I help you, Miss Vale?
Yes.
You can stop following me. Can't do that. Why not? Boss's orders. Your boss doesn't control me. The man considered this. That's technically true. But he does control me. And he told me to keep you safe. So, unless you want me to lose my job, or worse, you're stuck with me. Emma wanted to scream. Instead, she said, What's your name? The man looked surprised. Sal. Sal Martino. Well, Sal, if you're going to stalk me, at least stay far enough back that it's not obvious. You're making my neighbors nervous. Sal cracked the faintest smile. Noted. By Friday, Emma had noticed 3 different watchers rotating shifts. Sal during the day, a younger guy named Danny in the evenings, and at night, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression who introduced herself only as Rita when Emma confronted her Thursday at 2 a.m. during an insomniac walk. Does Romano have nothing better to do than babysit a waitress? Emma had asked. Rita had simply smiled. You're not just a waitress anymore, honey. Whether you like it or not. Emma hated how true that felt. Her neighborhood had changed in just over a week. The streetlight, the cameras, the repairs. Even the drug dealers who used to hang out on the corner had vanished. Emma suspected Sal had encouraged them to relocate. People noticed. Mrs. Chun from 3B stopped Emma in the hallway. Is it true? The elderly woman asked, eyes wide. That you saved a gangster's daughter? Emma's stomach sank. Where did you hear that? Everyone's talking about it. They say that's why the neighborhood is so clean now. That Mr. Romano is protecting you. Mrs. Chun. I'm not complaining. The old woman patted Emma's arm. For the first time in 20 years, I feel safe walking to the market at night. If having mobsters around means my grandchildren can play outside, I'll take it. She shuffled away, leaving Emma standing in the hallway, dizzy with the implications. This was how it happened, she realized. This was how good people got pulled into bad worlds. Not through violence or threats, but through gratitude. Through small kindnesses that came with invisible strings. Romano wasn't buying her loyalty. He was making her neighborhood dependent on his protection. And Emma had no idea how to stop it. She pulled out Detective Chen's card, stared at the phone number.
But what would she say?
Please make them stop fixing my neighborhood. Emma pocketed the card and walked to her window. Down below, Sal's sedan sat under the glowing streetlight. Watching, waiting, protecting. A prison made of safety. Vincenzo Romano sat in the dark. The hospital room's lights were off, only the soft glow of monitors illuminating Gianna's sleeping face. She'd been moved out of ICU 3 days ago, upgraded to a regular private suite, but Vincenzo hadn't left. He'd changed suits twice, showered in the hospital's executive bathroom, took calls from his office in hushed tones in the hallway. But he hadn't gone home. Couldn't go home. The mansion felt wrong without Gianna in it. Empty in a way it hadn't been since Maria died. His phone buzzed. A text from Sal. Package secure. No issues. Vincenzo typed back. Good. Keep rotation tight. He pocketed the phone and looked at his daughter. Really looked at her. When had she gotten so thin? The hospital gown hung loose on her frame. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, even in sleep. Her cheekbones were too sharp, her wrists too delicate, where the 4-line fed into her vein. How long had she been losing weight without him noticing? How long had she been sick? The doctors had been diplomatic but clear. Gianna's allergy wasn't new. She'd been exposed to trace amounts of shellfish before, cross-contamination in restaurants, shared cooking equipment. Her reactions had been getting worse over time, her body increasingly sensitized. She should have been carrying an EpiPen, the allergist had said, confusion in her voice. With a history like this, it should have been prescribed years ago. But Vincenzo hadn't known there was a history. He'd been too busy running his empire, too consumed with shipments and territory disputes and making sure the family business stayed profitable and protected. He'd given Gianna everything money could buy, the best schools, designer clothes, a trust fund that would set her up for life. Everything except his attention. The door opened softly. Gianna stirred, blinking awake. Dad? What time is it? Almost midnight. Go back to sleep. Instead, she struggled to sit up. Vincenzo quickly adjusted her pillows, helped her settle. You're still here, she said. It wasn't a question. There was something in her voice, surprise, maybe even wonder. Where else would I be? Gianna looked at him for a long moment. Usually, anywhere but here. The words hit him like a physical blow. Gianna. It's okay. Her voice was soft, without accusation, which somehow made it worse. I know you're busy. I know the business is important. You're more important. Am I? She wasn't challenging him. She genuinely seemed uncertain. When's the last time we had dinner together? Just the two of us, not at some business function? Vincenzo opened his mouth. Closed it. He couldn't remember. When's my birthday, Dad? October, he said it confidently. July. July 23rd, Gianna smiled sadly. You missed it this year. You were in Chicago. Vincenzo felt something crack in his chest. I sent you a Cartier bracelet. I know. Sophia picked it out. Sophia was his assistant. It's beautiful, but I would have preferred you. The monitor beeped steadily in the silence. I'm sorry, Vincenzo said, and his voice cracked. Gianna, I'm so sorry. That waitress, Emma, she noticed something was wrong in like 30 seconds.
She saw me, Dad.
Really saw me. Gianna's eyes filled with tears. And I realized, you haven't really looked at me in years. Vincenzo stood abruptly, paced to the window. The city glittered below, his city, the empire he'd built through blood and careful strategy. What was it all worth if he'd lost his daughter in the process? Your mother would be ashamed of me, he said quietly. Mom would have made you sit down and have a conversation like a normal person. Gianna's laugh was wet with tears. She was the only one who could manage you. Vincenzo turned back to face her. When she died, I thought if I could just build something strong enough, big enough, I could keep you safe. Keep you from ever hurting like that again. But you can't, Dad. That's not how life works. I know that now. He sat back down, took her hand carefully, mindful of the four. I almost lost you, and I would have deserved it. Not because I wasn't there at the restaurant, but because I haven't been there for months. Years, maybe. You're here now, Gianna said softly. I should have been here before. Vincenzo squeezed her hand gently. That woman, Emma, she saw you as a person. Not as my daughter, not as a Romano, just as someone who needed help. She didn't think about consequences or politics or what she'd get out of it. She just helped. She's pretty incredible, Gianna agreed. She refused my money. Twice Vincenzo shook his head, still amazed. Do you know how long it's been since someone refused me? She asked you to fix a streetlight instead.
She did.
And you know what? I'm having her entire neighborhood fixed. New lights, new cameras, street repairs. Because she didn't ask for herself. She asked for other people. He looked at his daughter. When's the last time anyone in my life did something that wasn't about themselves? Gianna was quiet for a moment. Then, Mom did. Every day. The grief hit Vincenzo fresh, even 5 years later.
Yes.
She did. Y mis hija, that. Me too, baby. Every single day. Gianna wiped her eyes. Emma dropped out of nursing school. Did you know that?
Vincenzo nodded.
He'd had her background checked within hours of the incident. Standard procedure. Her father died. Medical debt. She could have finished. She was good enough to save my life with a pen, Dad. She should be a nurse. Or a doctor. She refused my money, remember? Then don't give her money. Gianna's voice got stronger, more animated. Give her an opportunity. Help her finish school. Anonymously, so she doesn't feel like it's charity. Vincenzo considered this. She'd be suspicious.
Probably.
She's smart, Gianna smiled. But she also cares about people. If you frame it right, if you make it about helping the community instead of helping her personally, she might accept. Vincenzo felt a genuine smile cross his face for the first time in days. You're clever. Like your mother. I learned from the best, Gianna yawned. Both of you, get some rest. As Gianna's eyes drifted closed, she murmured, Thanks for staying, Dad. Vincenzo sat back in his chair, watching his daughter sleep. For years, he'd ruled through fear and control. He'd built an empire, crushed his enemies, commanded absolute loyalty. But a waitress with nothing had shown him something he'd forgotten. That real strength wasn't about power. It was about seeing people.
Really seeing them.
He pulled out his phone, texted his lawyer, set up an anonymous scholarship fund. Medical students. Focus on those who had to leave school due to financial hardship. I want it operational by next month. Then he texted Sal. Keep watching her. But be subtle. She values her independence. Finally, he set the phone aside and simply sat with his daughter. The empire could wait. Emma was wiping down tables after the Wednesday lunch rush when Tony emerged from the back, looking uncomfortable. You have a visitor, he said. If it's another reporter, I'm not interested. It's not a reporter, Tony's voice dropped. It's him. Emma's heart skipped. She looked toward the entrance and saw Vincenzo Romano standing just inside the door alone. No bodyguards flanking him. No SUVs blocking traffic. Just a man in an expensive charcoal suit, looking oddly out of place in the afternoon lull of a neighborhood Italian restaurant. He asked for coffee, Tony said. Table 12. Emma steadied herself, grabbed a pot of fresh coffee, and approached. Vincenzo sat with his back to the wall. Old habits, she supposed, his hands folded on the table. When he saw her, something flickered across his face. Not quite a smile, but softer than his usual expression. Miss Vale. Mr. Romano, Emma set down a cup and poured. How's Gianna? Better. She comes home tomorrow. He wrapped his hands around the cup, but didn't drink. Thanks to you. I'm glad. Emma moved to leave, but his voice stopped her. Could you sit? Just for a moment. It wasn't an order. It was a request. And there was something so unexpectedly vulnerable in it that Emma found herself sliding into the opposite chair. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. I wanted to thank you properly, Vincenzo finally said. Not with money or favors or grand gestures.
Just.
Thank you. Person to person. Father to, he paused. To someone who saved my daughter when I couldn't. Emma saw the weight he carried in those words. You weren't there. You couldn't have known. I should have known. His voice was quiet but firm. I should have known about her allergies, about her health, about... He stopped, seeming to struggle with the admission. About her. I've been so focused on protecting her from my world that I forgot to just be present in hers. Emma thought about her own father, how he'd worked double shifts at the factory to pay for her nursing school, how he died of a heart attack at his machine because he couldn't afford to take a day off when he felt unwell. We do the best we can, she said softly. Sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes it's too much of the wrong things. But we try. Vincenzo looked at her, really looked at her, the way powerful people rarely looked at waitresses. Gianna told me about your father. About school, he held up a hand before Emma could react. I had you checked out. Standard procedure.
I'm sorry.
Emma's jaw tightened. So, you know everything about me. I know the facts. That's different than knowing you. He finally took a sip of coffee. Tell me something that's not in a background report. Emma should have stood up. Should have walked away. But something about the quiet sincerity in his voice kept her there. I wanted to be a trauma nurse, she heard herself say. ER work, the chaos, the split-second decisions. My instructors said I had good instincts. Fast hands, she smiled sadly. Then my dad died, and suddenly I had $40,000 in medical debt on top of my student loans. Dropping out wasn't a choice. It was survival. And now you serve pasta. Now I serve pasta, she agreed. It pays rent. Mostly. Vincenzo was quiet for a moment. Do you miss it? Medicine? Every single day the admission hurt. I dream about it sometimes. Going back, finishing. But that ship has sailed.
Why?
Because I'm 26 with debt I'll be paying off until I'm 50. Because nursing programs don't hold seats for people who disappear for 2 years. Because... She stopped, surprised at how much she'd shared. Why am I telling you this? Because I asked, Vincenzo said simply. And because maybe you haven't had anyone to tell it to. He wasn't wrong. Emma's friends from nursing school had moved on, graduated, started careers. Her life had stalled, while theirs progressed. She'd stopped answering their calls after a while, tired of explaining why she was stuck. What about you? She asked, deflecting. When's the last time you told someone the truth about yourself? Vincenzo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. My wife. 5 years ago, before the cancer took her.
I'm sorry.
She was like you in a way. She saw through all the... He gestured vaguely. The titles, the reputation, the fear. She just saw me.
Vincenzo.
A man who is good at business and terrible at expressing emotion. Gianna has her eyes, Emma said. She'd noticed in the hospital the same dark, intelligent gaze. Yes, Vincenzo's expression softened. And her strength. Maria would have noticed Gianna was sick. She would have noticed I was failing as a father. He met Emma's eyes. You noticed in 30 seconds what I missed for months. I was trained to notice. No, he shook his head. Training helps. But what you did, that was empathy. That's not something you can teach. The restaurant's front door chimed. A family came in, and Emma became aware that she'd been sitting with Vincenzo Romano for nearly 20 minutes. Tony was pretending to organize menus by the host's stand, stealing glances their way. I should get back to work, Emma said. Vincenzo nodded, standing when she did. Old world manners. Thank you for the coffee. And the conversation. He pulled out his wallet and Emma tensed, but he only left a 20 on the table, a normal, if generous, tip. As he turned to leave, Emma found herself saying, Mr. Romano? He looked back. Gianna's lucky to have you, even if you're just figuring out how to show it. Something vulnerable crossed his face. I'm not sure I deserve that assessment. Maybe not, Emma said honestly. But you're trying. That counts for something. Vincenzo held her gaze for a moment, then nodded once and left. Emma watched through the window as he climbed into a black car, Not an SUV, just a sedan, driven by someone she didn't recognize.
No fanfare. No spectacle.
Just a father who'd come to thank the woman who saved his daughter. What did he want? Tony asked nervously, appearing at her elbow. Emma picked up the 20, folded it, tucked it into her apron. To talk, she said. Just to talk. But as she cleared Vincenzo's cup, she realized something had shifted. The fear she'd felt before, of being pulled into his world, of owing him something, had eased slightly. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't a saint either. He was just a man trying to do better. And somehow, that was more complicated than either extreme. The man in the Yankees cap had been sitting at the bus stop for 3 days. Emma noticed him Tuesday morning on her way to work. Wednesday, he was there again, same spot, same newspaper held at the same angle. Thursday, she paid closer attention. The newspaper was 3 days old, and he never turned the pages. She told herself she was being paranoid. But Friday night, when her shift ended and she stepped into the alley behind La Verita, the Yankees cap was waiting near the dumpsters. Emma's blood went cold. "Sal?" she called out, looking for the familiar black sedan. It wasn't there. Her hand went to her pocket, fumbling for her phone. The man stood slowly, tossing the newspaper aside. He was lean, mid-30s, with a scar running from his ear to his jaw. When he smiled, his teeth were too white, too sharp. "Sal's not coming tonight," he said. His accent was thick, Eastern European, maybe Russian. "Had a little car trouble." Funny how that happens. Emma backed toward the restaurant's door. It was locked. She'd heard the deadbolt click behind her. "What do you want?" "Just to talk." He took a step closer. "About your friend, Mr. Romano." "He's not my friend."
No.
The man tilted his head. "That's not what we hear. We hear he's very protective of you. We hear he visits you. Sends his men to watch over you like your family." Another man emerged from behind the dumpster. Shorter, stockier, with dead eyes and hands buried in his jacket pockets. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs.
I'm nobody.
"I just work here." "You're somebody now," Yankees cap said. "You're the girl who saved his daughter. That makes you leverage." The word hung in the air like a threat. Leverage for what? Romano owes people. Important people. But he's been difficult lately. Not cooperating, the man circled closer, cutting off her angle to the street. "We thought maybe he needs motivation. Reminder that everyone he cares about can be touched." Emma's mouth went dry. "You're going to hurt me to get to him?"
Hurt. Yankas kablauga. No, no.
"We're just going to take you somewhere quiet. Let Romano know we have you. See how fast he becomes cooperative when his good deed is in danger." The stocky man pulled his hand from his pocket. The streetlight glinted off something metal. Emma ran. She bolted toward the mouth of the alley, but Yankee's cap was faster. He grabbed her arm, yanking her back. Emma screamed, the sound ripping from her throat. A hand clamped over her mouth. "Shut up," he hissed in her ear. "Make this easy." Emma bit down hard. The man cursed, his grip loosening for just a second. She twisted free, stumbled forward. And then the world exploded with sound. A car engine roared. Tires squealed. Headlights flooded the alley, blinding white. A silver BMW skidded to a stop between Emma and her attackers. The driver's door flew open, and Gianna Romano stepped out. She looked nothing like the dying girl from the restaurant. Her hair was pulled back, her face set with cold fury. She wore jeans and a leather jacket, and in her right hand, she held a gun. It looked wrong in her small hands, too big, too deadly. But the way she aimed it was practiced, confident. "Back away from her," Gianna said, her voice steady despite the pallor of her face. She shouldn't be out of bed, let alone holding a weapon.
Now.
Yankee's cap raised his hand slowly, but he was smiling. "Little girl playing dress-up? This little girl will put a bullet in your knee before you take another step." Gianna's finger rested on the trigger. "My father taught me to shoot when I was 8. Want to test how good I got?" A second car pulled into the alley, the familiar black sedan. Sal emerged, gun drawn, fury etched across his usually bored face. Behind him, two more of Romano's men appeared, blocking the alley's exit. The attackers were surrounded.
Yan kas kaps mila fada.
He looked at his partner, some silent communication passing between them. Then he raised his voice. Tell Romano we'll be back. Tell him Constantine sends his regards. Tell him yourself in hell, Sal growled. But Yankee's cap was already backing away, hands still raised. His partner followed. Sal's men let them pass. Emma realized with a chill that this was intentional. They were letting them go, sending a message back to whoever sent them. The moment they disappeared into the night, Gianna's arm dropped. The gun suddenly looked too heavy. She swayed slightly. Emma rushed forward, catching her as her knees buckled. What are you doing here? Emma demanded, holding Gianna upright. You should be in the hospital. Sal called me. Gianna said, her voice weak. Said his car was sabotaged.
Said you were exposed.
I couldn't just, she broke off, looking at Emma with fierce intensity. You saved my life. I wasn't going to let them touch you. Sal appeared at their side, holstering his weapon. Miss Romano, your father is going to kill me. Get in line, Gianna muttered. Then she wrapped her arms around Emma, holding tight. Are you okay? Did they hurt you? Emma realized she was shaking.
Fine. I'm okay.
No, you're not, Gianna pulled back, studying Emma's face. You're terrified. And this is my fault. Your fault? How? My father's enemies know he cares about you. So you became a target. Gianna's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm so sorry, Emma. Sal gently took the gun from Gianna's hand. We need to get both of you somewhere safe.
Now.
My apartment. Not safe, Sal said flatly. They know where you live, Miss Vale. They've been watching. The reality crashed over Emma. Her home wasn't safe. Her work wasn't safe. The life she'd been clinging to had just shattered. Where? She whispered. Sal and Gianna exchanged glances. There's only one place, Gianna said quietly. My father's house. Full security. Guards at every entrance. They can't touch you there. I can't just move into a mob boss's mansion. You can and you will, Gianna said, her voice strengthening with Romano's steel. Until this is handled. Emma wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, to claim her independence, to pretend this wasn't happening. But Yankee's Cap's words echoed in her mind. Everyone he cares about can be touched. She'd saved Gianna's life. Now Gianna was saving hers. Okay, Emma whispered. Okay. Sal helped them both into the BMW. As they pulled out of the alley, Emma looked back at La Verita, the restaurant that had been her anchor for 2 years. She had a terrible feeling she wouldn't be coming back for a long time. The Romano mansion sat behind iron gates on 5 acres of manicured property, lit up like a fortress. Emma stared through the BMW's window as they passed through security checkpoints, armed guards, cameras, motion sensors. This wasn't a home. It was a compound. Overkill, I know, Gianna said softly, reading Emma's expression. But after Mom died, Dad got paranoid. Sal pulled into a circular driveway. The house loomed above them. White stone, columns, too many windows to count. Wealth that made Emma's studio apartment feel like a cardboard box. Miss Romano shouldn't be out of bed, Sal muttered as he helped Gianna from the car. Your father's going to have my head. Then we won't tell him, Gianna said. He already knows, Sal nodded toward the entrance. Vincenzo stood in the doorway, backlit by chandelier light. Even from a distance, Emma could see the fury radiating from him. He descended the steps in quick strides. Gianna Maria Romano, what the hell were you thinking? Dad. You were released from the hospital 6 hours ago with strict orders to rest. And you're out waving a gun around in an alley? His voice rose with each word. You could have collapsed. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. Gianna lifted her chin, meeting his anger with stubborn calm. And Emma's alive because I was there, Vincenzo's gaze shifted to Emma. The fury drained from his face, replaced with concern. Are you hurt?
No. I'm okay.
Gianna stopped them before. Emma's voice cracked. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and cold. Vincenzo seemed to realize she was trembling. His expression softened. Come inside. Both of you. The mansion's interior was somehow both opulent and empty. Marble floors, expensive artwork, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. But no family photos.
No personal touches.
Just wealth displayed like armor. A woman in her 60s appeared, gray hair in a neat bun, kind eyes, practical clothes. Miss Gianna, you should be resting.
Ai fine, Rosa.
You're exhausted. Rosa took Gianna's arm firmly. Upstairs.
Now.
I'll bring you soup. Gianna looked ready to argue, but Rosa gave her a look that Emma recognized, the universal expression of someone who'd raised you and wouldn't tolerate nonsense.
Fine, Gianna mattered.
She squeezed Emma's hand. You're safe here. I promise. Then Rosa was guiding her toward a grand staircase, scolding in rapid Italian. Emma stood in the foyer, suddenly alone with Vincenzo. Konstantin Volkov, Vincenzo said, his voice deadly quiet. That's who sent them. Russian syndicate moving into port operations. We've been negotiating. Negotiating, Emma repeated hollowly. He wants territory I won't give. So, he thought taking you would change my mind. Vincenzo's jaw tightened. He was wrong. What are you going to do? Handle it. The way he said it made Emma's blood run cold. But that's not your concern. What matters is keeping you safe. By bringing me here? Into your world. Emma's voice rose with sudden anger. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be leverage or protection or whatever I am to you. You think I wanted this? Vincenzo shot back. You think I wanted my gratitude to put you in danger? Then let me go. Let me disappear, change my name, move somewhere. It's too late for that. His voice was harsh. They know who you are. They know what you mean to me. Running won't save you. It'll just make you easier to find. Emma sank onto an uncomfortable antique chair, the reality crushing her. This is insane. Welcome to my world. Vincenzo's voice was bitter. Everything I touch turns dangerous. Even gratitude. They sat in silence for a long moment. I'm sorry, Vincenzo finally said. For all of this. You saved my daughter's life, and I've repaid you by making yours a nightmare. Before Emma could respond, Sal burst through the front door. Boss, we've got a problem. Vincenzo was on his feet instantly. What? Volkov's men hit 3 of our warehouses. Simultaneous strikes. They're sending a message. They're not backing down. How many casualties? 2 injured, none dead. But they're escalating. Vincenzo's expression went cold, calculated. Call a meeting. Every captain, every lieutenant. I want them here in 1 hour. Boss. Now, Sal. Sal nodded and disappeared. Vincenzo turned back to Emma. Rosa will show you to a guest room. Don't leave the house. Don't go near windows. And don't open doors for anyone but Rosa or Gianna. What are you going to do? What I should have done weeks ago. He headed toward what looked like an office. End this. Emma couldn't sleep. The guest room was larger than her entire apartment. King bed with silk sheets, private bathroom with heated floors, a view of the moonlit grounds. Prison had never been so luxurious. She paced, her mind spinning. This morning she'd been a waitress. Tonight, she was a hostage in a mansion, the focal point of a mob war. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Come in, Emma called. Gianna entered, wrapped in a silk robe, looking exhausted but determined. Can't sleep either? How could I? Gianna sat on the edge of the bed. I heard Dad's meeting. He's planning something big. How big? The kind that ends with Volkov either backing down completely or she trailed off. Or dying, Emma finished. Gianna didn't deny it. My father doesn't do things halfway. When he commits to a course of action, he sees it through. People are going to get hurt. People were always going to get hurt. That's how this works. Gianna looked at Emma. But he's doing this for you. To keep you safe. I never asked him to. Doesn't matter. In his mind, you're family now. And he protects family. Emma thought about her own father, how he'd worked himself to death trying to protect her future. Different methods, same desperate love. Your father, Emma said slowly, he's not what I expected. No one is. Once you get past the reputation, Gianna smiled sadly. He's terrifying and kind and broken and trying. All at once. Like most people.
Yeah.
Like most people. They sat together in the quiet of the enormous room, two women caught in a world neither had chosen. Thank you, Emma finally said. For tonight.
For coming for me.
You saved my life with a pen, Gianna said simply. I'd have done a lot more than fire a warning shot. Downstairs, in his office, Vincenzo was making calls. Not to order hits or plan violence, but to cut supply lines, to freeze accounts, to call in favors from politicians and judges and union bosses, to make Volkov's operations impossible to run without firing a single shot. Isolate him, he told his attorney. Every port contact, every shipping route, every protection scheme. I want him boxed in by morning. That's a lot of bridges to burn, Vincenzo. Then burn them, his voice was steel. No one threatens what's mine. He hung up and stared at the family photo on his desk, Maria, young and smiling, holding baby Gianna. His wife would have hated the man he'd become. But maybe, just maybe, she'd have understood what he was trying to be now. Emma woke to silence. Not the normal city silence she was used to, distant sirens, neighbors arguing, traffic humming. This was different. Heavy. The kind of quiet that came before storms. She checked her phone. 6:47 a.m. 14 missed calls from Tony, 6 from coworkers, 3 from numbers she didn't recognize. A text from Tony, sent at midnight. Are you okay? Heard something happened. Please respond. Emma started to type a reply, then stopped. What could she say? I'm fine, just hiding in a mob boss's mansion while he wages war over me. She deleted the draft. A soft knock on her door. Rosa entered with a tray, coffee, toast, eggs perfectly scrambled. You need to eat, Rosa said, setting the tray on the bedside table. Her tone left no room for argument. Is Gianna sleeping? Finally. That girl has her mother's stubbornness. Rosa's expression softened. And you have a kind heart. That's why you're in this mess. I'm starting to think kindness is overrated.
Rosa smiled sadly.
In this house, kindness is revolutionary. She moved toward the door, then paused. Mr. Romano hasn't slept. He's been in his office all night, making calls, moving pieces on his chessboard. What's he planning? Something different than before. Something his men don't understand yet. Rosa met Emma's eyes. You've changed him. Whether that's good or bad, time will tell. Emma found Vincenzo 2 hours later in his office, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. He looked exhausted, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, 5 o'clock shadow darkening his jaw. He glanced up when she entered. You should stay upstairs. I've been staying places for 3 days. I want answers. Emma crossed her arms. What did you do? Vincenzo leaned back in his chair. I made Konstantin Volkov irrelevant. What does that mean? It means I called every contact I have in the Port Authority, the Longshoremen's Union, the shipping companies. Volkov's operations depend on access. Access I control. As of this morning, he has none. Emma stared. You cut off his business. Completely. His shipments are stuck in customs. His warehouses can't get product. His distribution networks have nowhere to distribute to. Vincenzo's voice was matter-of-fact. By tonight, he'll be hemorrhaging money. By next week, his investors will be looking elsewhere.
That's
not what I expected. What did you expect? Bodies?
Va?
Vincenzo stood, moving to the window. 10 years ago, that's what I would have done. I would have sent my men to his territory, burned his operations to the ground, made an example that would last generations. But not now. Now I have a daughter who almost died because I was too busy building an empire to notice she was sick. Now I have someone in my home who refuses my money and asks me to fix streetlights instead. He turned to face Emma. You made me remember there are other ways to solve problems. I didn't. You did. Whether you meant to or not, he moved back to his desk, pulled out a folder. Volkov will come to me today. He'll want to negotiate, to salvage what he can. And I'll make him a deal. What kind of deal? He leaves my city, takes his operations somewhere else. In exchange, I restore his access, gradually, carefully, enough for him to extract himself without complete ruin. Vincenzo tapped the folder. And he signs a contract guaranteeing your safety. In writing. Witnessed by people who matter in our world. Emma's throat tightened. You're letting him go? After what he tried to do to me. I'm neutralizing him. Permanently. Vincenzo's eyes were hard. If I kill him, his organization comes after me. After Gianna. After you. It never ends. But if I make him powerless, make him dependent on my mercy to survive, make him sign his name to your protection, he smiled without warmth. Then, he becomes an ally. Because his survival depends on keeping you safe. It was brilliant, ruthless, and completely bloodless. Your men must hate this, Emma said. They're confused. They expected violence. They're trained for violence, Vincenzo shrugged. But I didn't build this empire by being predictable. Volkov expected war. So I gave him economics instead. Konstantin Volkov arrived at noon. Emma watched from the second-floor landing as he was led into Vincenzo's office. A big man, broad-shouldered, with cold blue eyes and a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. He walked like someone used to being feared. But today, his confidence looked forced. The office door closed. Emma couldn't hear the conversation, but she didn't need to. She could imagine it. Vincenzo, calm and controlled, laying out exactly how thoroughly Volkov had been outmaneuvered. 40 minutes later, the door opened. Volkov emerged looking pale, diminished. He walked past Emma without seeing her, escorted by two of Romano's men. Vincenzo appeared in the doorway. It's done. Emma descended the stairs. What did he say?
He wanted to fight.
To threaten. To salvage his pride. Vincenzo's expression was unreadable. Then I showed him the numbers. How much he's already lost. How much more he'll lose every day I keep his operations frozen. And
he signed.
He's leaving New York by the end of the month. And he agreed to put out word in his network. You're untouchable. Anyone who harms you answers to him and to me. Emma should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt something more complicated. Gratitude mixed with unease at how easily Vincenzo had reshaped reality with phone calls and leverage. You didn't kill anyone, she said softly.
No.
Your men think you've gone soft. Probably, Vincenzo smiled slightly. But I'm still standing, Volkov is broken, and you're safe. That's all that matters. Gianna appeared at the top of the stairs, wrapped in a blanket. Is it over? It's over, Vincenzo confirmed. Gianna descended carefully, still weak. She looked between her father and Emma. You did this differently. Mom would have been proud. Vincenzo's expression cracked, just for a moment. I hope so, baby. He pulled Gianna into a careful hug, mindful of her healing throat. Emma watched them, this dangerous man and his brave daughter, and realized something fundamental had shifted. Vincenzo hadn't just protected her. He'd proven he could change. And somehow, that was more terrifying than any threat. Emma stayed at the mansion for 3 more days. Not because Vincenzo insisted, though he would have, but because she needed time to process everything. Time to figure out what came next. On the 4th morning, she announced she was going home. Are you sure? Gianna asked over breakfast. They'd fallen into an easy routine. Coffee on the terrace, Rose's pastries, quiet conversation before the day began. I can't hide forever. And I miss my apartment. My life. Your life almost got you kidnapped, Gianna pointed out. My life also includes paying rent and showing up for work and not living in a mansion with armed guards. Emma smiled to soften the words.
I'm grateful. But this isn't me.
Gianna nodded slowly. I get it. This place is a prison sometimes. Beautiful, but still a prison. You could leave too, you know. Go to college, travel, be a normal 17-year-old. 18, Gianna corrected. Birthday was last month, remember? Emma winced.
Sorry.
I wasn't. It's fine. Dad forgot too. Well, not forgot. He just wasn't present. Gianna stared at her coffee. But he's trying now. That's something. Vincenzo drove Emma home himself.
No bodyguards. No convoy.
Just the two of them in his Mercedes, morning traffic crawling through the city. Sal will still check on you, Vincenzo said. But less obviously. You won't even know he's there. That's not creepy at all. A ghost of a smile. Welcome to my world. We protect what matters. They drove in silence for a few blocks. Why did you really bring me here? Emma asked. You could have put me in a hotel with security. Or a safe house. Vincenzo's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Because hotels are impersonal. And safe houses are, he struggled for words. I wanted you somewhere I could know you were safe. Where Gianna could see we're okay. Where I could control the situation?
Yes. No.
Both, he exhaled frustration. I'm not good at this. At caring about people outside my immediate circle. It's dangerous in my line of work. But you do it anyway. Apparently, he glanced at her. You're a complication, Emma Vale. Trust me, you're not exactly simple either. That earned a genuine laugh. Fair enough. When they reached her building, Vincenzo insisted on walking her up. He studied her street, the fixed streetlight, the new security cameras, the repaired sidewalks, with something like satisfaction. Your neighborhood looks good, he said. Thanks to you. Thanks to your request, they climbed the stairs to her floor. You could have asked for anything. You asked for others to be safe. That says something about who you are. Emma unlocked her door, stepped into her tiny studio apartment. After the mansion, it looked even smaller, but it was hers. Vincenzo stood in the doorway, too large for the cramped space. There's something I need to tell you, he said. About an opportunity. Emma's guard went up immediately. I told you I don't want. It's not from me. Officially, he pulled out a brochure. There's a scholarship fund.
New.
Anonymous donor. It's for people who had to leave nursing school due to financial hardship. Emma stared at the glossy paper.
Vincenzo.
I didn't create it.
My lawyer did.
Completely separate from me, separate from my businesses. It's legitimate, legal, clean. He met her eyes. You'd have to apply like anyone else. But you'd qualify. You expect me to believe this is a coincidence.
No.
I expect you to be smart enough to take an opportunity when it's offered, his voice softened. You saved my daughter's life with skills you learned in 18 months of school. Imagine what you could do with a degree. Emma looked at the brochure, full tuition, living stipend, no strings attached. Why, she whispered. Because some debts can't be repaid with money. So I'm trying to repay it with possibility. He set the brochure on her tiny kitchen counter. Think about it. No pressure.
No obligation.
Just an option. He turned to leave.
Vincenzo.
He looked back. Thank you. For everything. For keeping me safe. For trying to do better. Something vulnerable crossed his face. That's all any of us can do. Try. 2 weeks passed. Emma returned to work at La Verita. Tony hugged her so hard, she couldn't breathe, then immediately put her back on the schedule. Life resumed its familiar rhythm. Orders, tips, sore feet, the comforting chaos of service. But everything had changed. Sal's car was gone, but Emma spotted different watchers. A woman reading at the coffee shop across the street. A delivery driver who seemed to linger too long. Protection, but invisible now. She'd learned to live with ghosts. The scholarship brochure sat on her kitchen counter for a week before she finally filled out the application. She told herself she probably wouldn't get it, that there would be more qualified candidates. But she applied anyway. 3 weeks after submitting the application, an envelope arrived. Thick paper. Official letterhead. Emma's hands shook as she opened it. Dear Ms. Vale, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as a recipient of the Renaissance Medical Scholarship Fund. Emma had to read it 3 times before it felt real. Full tuition to finish her nursing degree. Monthly stipend for living expenses. Access to career counseling and job placement. She could go back. She could finish what she'd started. Emma sat on her couch, tears streaming down her face, and thought about the strange path that had led here. How saving one life had changed everything. How a mafia boss had learned empathy. How his daughter had learned courage. How sometimes the most unlikely people became family. She pulled out her phone and sent a text to the number she'd never deleted. Thank you. For believing I was worth saving too. 3 dots appeared. Then, you saved yourself. I just opened a door. What you do with it is up to you.
There.
Another text followed immediately, and you're having dinner with us next Sunday.
Rosa insists.
She says you're too thin.
No arguments.
Emma laughed through her tears. A third text. Gianna wants you to know she's applied to Columbia.
Pyramid.
She says she wants to save lives too. You inspired her. Emma typed back. Tell her I'm proud of her. And tell Rosa I'll be there. A final message. We're proud of you too. Emma set down her phone and looked around her tiny apartment. It wasn't much, but it was hers. And for the first time in 2 years, the future looked like something other than survival. It looked like possibility. 6 months later. Emma stood in front of a small storefront on the corner of 8th and Madison, keys trembling in her hand. The sign above the door read, Vale Community Clinic, Every Life Matters. The name had come to her one sleepless night during her first semester back at nursing school. Not just her name, but a promise. A mission statement. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The space was small, just 3 examination rooms, a tiny waiting area with mismatched chairs, a desk salvaged from a thrift store. But it was clean, equipped, and hers. Well, not entirely hers. The funding had appeared the same way the scholarship had, through an anonymous donor, funneled through so many legal entities that even Emma's attorney couldn't trace it back to its source. But she knew. She'd tried to refuse at first, had called the number Vincenzo gave her, ready to argue that she couldn't accept this, that it was too much. Gianna had answered instead. He's not buying your loyalty, Gianna had said firmly. He's investing in the community. In people who need help. You're just the person he trusts to run it. That's the same thing. No, it's not. If you take his money and do nothing, that's a transaction. If you take his money and save lives. Gianna paused. That's transformation. For everyone. So Emma had accepted. With conditions. No Romano name on the clinic. No interference in how she ran it. No expectations beyond serving the neighborhood. Vincenzo had agreed to everything. The clinic opened on a Tuesday morning in October. Emma's first patient was Mrs. Chun from her old apartment building, the elderly woman who'd thanked her months ago for making the neighborhood safer. You're a doctor now? Mrs. Chun asked, settling into the examination chair. Nurse practitioner. Close enough. Emma checked her blood pressure. High, but manageable. How long have you been skipping your medication? Mrs. Chun looked sheepish. Too expensive. Social Security doesn't stretch far enough. Well, it's free here. Along with the visit, Emma pulled out a prescription pad. I want you coming back every month. We'll monitor that blood pressure. Mrs. Chen's eyes filled with tears. Free? Free, Emma confirmed. That's what this place is for. Word spread quickly. By the end of the first week, Emma had seen 40 patients, diabetics who couldn't afford insulin, kids with untreated ear infections, a homeless man with pneumonia who'd been turned away from the ER because he couldn't pay. Emma treated them all. She worked 16-hour days, fell into bed exhausted, and woke up excited to do it again. This was what she'd dreamed of.
Purpose.
Impact. Medicine that wasn't about insurance codes or billing departments, but about people. Sunday dinners at the Romano house had become routine. Emma arrived at 6, always bringing wine she couldn't really afford, a small gesture of independence. Rosa would scold her for working too hard, then feed her enough pasta to feed 3 people. Gianna would update her on Columbia pre-med courses, complaining about organic chemistry with the passion of someone who secretly loved the challenge. And Vincenzo would listen, quieter than usual, watching his daughter with something like wonder. Tonight, after dinner, he pulled Emma aside. "Walk with me?" They strolled through the garden, fall flowers blooming, security lights disguised as landscape lighting, guards invisible but present. "The clinic is doing well," Vincenzo said. It wasn't a question. "Better than I expected. We've seen almost 200 patients in 6 months. You're making a difference. Thanks to you." "No," Vincenzo stopped walking, turned to face her. "Thanks to you. I provided resources. You provided everything else, the vision, the work, the compassion." He paused. "You've changed this neighborhood. People feel safer, healthier. They have hope." Emma thought about Mrs. Chun, about the diabetic teenager she'd stabilized last week, about the dozens of small victories that made up her days. "You changed too," she said softly. "Gianna told me you've been pulling back from some of your businesses. Going legitimate."
Vincenzo smiled ruefully. Slowly.
"Very slowly. You can't unwind an empire overnight." His expression grew serious. "But I'm trying. For Gianna. So she can have a father she's proud of, not just one she's afraid of. She's already proud of you. Because of you. Because you showed me there was another way." He looked back toward the house, where Gianna's laugh echoed through an open window. "My daughter wants to be a doctor. 6 months ago, she barely wanted to be alive. You did that. She did that herself. With your example." Vincenzo pulled an envelope from his jacket. "One more thing." Emma recognized the heavy paper, started to protest.
Vincenzo.
"It's not money. Open it." Inside was a photograph, candid, slightly blurry, taken from across the street. Emma in front of the clinic, laughing with a patient. A little girl holding her mother's hand, pointing at the sign. An elderly man sitting on the bench outside, reading a newspaper in the warmth of the afternoon sun. "Sal took this last week," Vincenzo said quietly. "He wanted me to see what you built." Emma stared at the photograph, her throat tight. "I've spent 30 years building an empire based on fear and control," Vincenzo continued. "And in 6 months, you've built something based on compassion and hope. And you've reached more people, changed more lives, than I ever did with all my power." "That's not true." "It is. And it's humbling." He took the photograph back, studied it. "My wife used to say that legacy isn't what you take from the world. It's what you leave behind that makes it better." "She sounds like she was incredible." "She was." Vincenzo's voice was thick with old grief. "You would have liked each other." They walked back toward the house in comfortable silence. Through the windows, Emma could see Gianna helping Rosa clear dishes, could hear their voices mixing with laughter and the clink of plates. This strange, unlikely family she'd stumbled into. Later, as Emma prepared to leave, she noticed a black car across the street. Not Sal's sedan. Different make, but familiar somehow. Vincenzo followed her gaze and smiled. "Just someone making sure the streetlight still works," he said. Emma looked up. The light glowed steady and bright, illuminating the corner where she'd once asked a Mafia boss for a simple favor. Where everything had changed. She climbed into her car, used, reliable, paid for with her clinic salary, and drove the familiar route home. In the rear-view mirror, the black car stayed parked under the streetlight. Inside, Vincenzo sat beside his daughter, both of them watching Emma's taillights disappear into the city. "She's going to be amazing," Gianna said softly. "She already is." Vincenzo put his arm around his daughter. "She saved your life. And somehow, she saved mine too." The camera panned up, past the car, past the glowing streetlight, up to the night sky above the city. A world changed by one act of empathy. One waitress who saw what everyone else ignored. One father who learned it was never too late to become better. And one light, burning steady in the darkness, showing the way home.